Hello, one and all. I'm Andrew,
And I'm Andrew.
artsmith and wordsmith of the Mithral campus, where we make homebrew items, monsters, and more for your D&D 5th edition campaigns. Welcome back to our rankings of homebrew Mithral subclasses. As of last month, we have one subclass for each of the 12 base classes in D&D 5e.
We covered the first 6 in our last video, so this time we're finishing off the list with the Wizard, Barbarian, Fighter, Sorcerer, Druid, and Ranger.
And the criteria is the same as before. We are considering how successfully we think the subclass delivers on the fantasy and flavor one would expect from picking it, as well as how functional it is in regards to the 3 pillars of play: combat, exploration, and social interaction.
Again, we're trying to be as unbiased as we can about our own creations, but we'd like to hear what you think about our rankings in the comments down below, especially if you're considering playing any of them in the future. Now, let's dive back in with the Spymaster Wizard.
Most arcane practitioners take great pride in their magical abilities, reveling in the respect and envy from those around them. Spymasters instead keep out of the spotlight, forgoing fame and fortune in favor of secrecy and espionage. Through an arsenal of duplicitous tactics, these wizards are capable of causing more damage overnight with their silver tongues and disguises than their peers ever could hope with their simple fireballs. By the time a target becomes aware of their unfortunate situation, the Spymaster is long gone, never to be seen again.
So yeah, stealth magic incarnate. You're a sneaky wizard.
Yep,
Not the most common thing in D&D.
the James Bond wizard.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot to work with. There is a lot of magic that amplifies deceptive play and stealth, but there's not a subclass actually based around it. We thought there was a lot of potential there.
Yeah, the closest thing is like the illusionist now.
Yeah, that's true.
But this was more specialized, more subterfuge sort of thing, and also with their disguise sort of flavor.
Yeah, I think you can see with the art as well. That kind of sells the whole thing.
Yeah.
You don't look like yourself. You infiltrate the party, do your deed, get gone before they know what hit them.
Yeah. You can see their penchant for subterfuge in their first ability that they get at 2nd level when you gain the Master of Disguise feature, which allows you to cast the Disguise self spell without expending a spell slot a number of times up to your Intelligence modifier. Additionally, you add your Intelligence modifier to Deception and Persuasion checks you make while disguised, making you a particularly effective face for the party.
Yeah, it's a miniature mask of many faces.
Yep.
Warlocks already love it, but not an unlimited version.
Yes, it is slightly more limited, but that is because it gets better over time.
Yeah. And you're a wizard, you got spell slots for days anyway.
You can do it. You don't need the free version that warlocks get.
Yeah, I think with most utility spells as well, the upper limit of a spell like this is non-existent, depending on the creativity of your players. So it's something that I think if you have a very creative wizard in your party, or someone who's really they love being the face and they love talking their way through altercations, they can have a lot of fun with the subclass.
Absolutely.
At 2nd level, you also gain the covert casting feature. With this, you can cast wizard spells from the enchantment or illusion schools without somatic or verbal components up to a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier.
Yeah, borrowing a bit from the sorcerer meta magic.
Yeah, but more limited in scope. The spells you can cast is not everything at your disposal.
Yeah.
Those two felt most on brand for this subclass, and as you build it, even though it's not a wizard focused on those schools necessarily, having those gives you a lot more option in terms of how to infiltrate and how to get out of your missions.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it's, even early on, it's definitely a bit quite powerful. Yeah, similar to the Master of Disguise, if you have a player who's really smart about how they use their abilities and this gives them another tool to play with, they're going to have a good time and can probably throw a lot of social interaction scenarios out of whack, out of balance. Now, the new wizard in 2024 for the illusion school, that's what they gave them, right?
Yeah.
You cast spells from farther away, you don't have to speak them out loud. So clearly even Wizards of the Coast was aware that was a problem for this sort of play. You want to create something in the distance to trick people, but the person who's saying the spells components, the verbal components, is probably the person who did that.
Yeah, it's very obvious when someone is casting one of those spells. They made it more subtle.
Yeah, and this way it also kind of takes away the It would be cool if you could cast any spell with it, but it's a little too powerful.
Yeah.
That way, and B, that's not quite the flavor we wanted. We didn't want it to be like you hide in the corner and then you just fire off any evocation spell you want
Yeah.
with no chance of getting caught at all.
Fireball with a silencer is a little strong.
Yeah. Pretty good. I mean, there's
Very cool idea, but
to be fair, there are powerful like illusion spells as well that
Sure.
can do a good amount of damage, but on the upper end, the evocation spells for quote free would be a lot.
Stealth Tactics at 6th level imposes disadvantage on saving throws against your spells if you are hidden from your target or your target is not hostile towards you.
So you can get a particularly turn off right at the start of combat, or
Right.
if you are positioned well. It's kind of like a roguish playstyle,
Yes.
hide in the shadows. And I know we were just saying we didn't want this subclass to be built around hiding and fireballing, but if you do, you are giving away your position, and you're just hoping with enough disadvantage you can wipe out a fair number of potential enemies.
Yeah, like it's necessary to have a combat buff like this, even if it's not focused primarily on combat. Having something you can do in a fight is very nice, and it is that sort of thing. Your position is compromised afterwards anyway, so it's really just for the beginning of combat.
Yeah, I mean, you can combine it with covert casting,
Sure.
in which case it is exactly what people envision of just keeping the shadows, subtly like whispering something and then a huge fireball erupts. That is very dangerous.
Yeah.
But that requires a couple things to go right. You have to be hidden, or people have to not be aware what you're doing.
Yeah.
At least. And I think depending on the outcome, things could go worse for you.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you murked an entire platoon of guards. That's going to bring about more severe consequences if they do manage to catch you.
Yeah. Same with any sort of like results of subterfuge. You're going to have to deal with the consequences of whatever you got away with.
Yeah. Every spy needs a good escape plan, so at 10th level, you get the fallback feature, which allows you to cast a spell from the enchantment or illusion schools as a reaction to taking damage.
You don't want to be the spy that gets caught.
No, but it's nice to have a backup plan. You know, you
Yeah.
can't always expect everything to go right. And I think it's fun because it's obviously pretty powerful, useful in combat. But even outside of that, like if the guard catches you and they manage to hit you with a sword or an arrow or something, you can reaction just something to panic yourself out of there.
Yep. I'm just imagining sort of like the Dead Ringer ability from Team Fortress, where the spy just turns invisible when you shoot him. He's just out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's not something, it's a feature that you quote never want to use.
No, you don't.
Hopefully.
want to.
But even on the battlefield, again, like you don't know what can happen if you take a pretty solid hit. It's nice to have a small cache of spells you can use as a reaction.
Yeah.
And you have to give up whatever else you might have done in combat, but it's up to you to determine what's more worth it in that moment. I think it's fun.
Yeah. It, again, relies on the creativity of the player.
Yeah. I do want to preface that with lots of, similar to some reaction spells or class features, don't let your player abuse this.
Yeah.
Like if the fantasy is supposed to be like you get caught out or something catches you off guard and then you go invisible or something to keep yourself safe. Not your monk going, oh, I tapped them for 1 damage and then as a reaction they get to cast Psychic Scream as a reaction. Like, don't let your players gain this if they want.
Yeah.
We could have added more restrictions, or it's tricky with things like that, but just in general, don't. If your player wants to exploit this, essentially, just tell them like, hey, can you not do this?
This rules is written versus rules as intended.
Yes, hopefully they can respect the fact that this is not meant to be used that way.
Yeah.
But up to your players.
At 14th level, you become impossibly hard to pin down and locate. With Untouchable, your magic is always on, making your true form difficult to perceive and imposing disadvantage on attacks made against you. Similar to Displacer Beast, this stops working if you take damage or suffer certain conditions, like being restrained.
Additionally, while the Disguise Self-spell is active, you are hidden from divination magic as well as any attempts to probe or affect you mentally. So one combat focused and one not so combat focused abilities for the capstone.
Yeah.
I think just warding off detection as well as invasion makes you for the perfect spy.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. You're already going to be going for spells like non-detection and stuff like that, but having it affect you while you are disguised just kind of makes sense.
I think funnily enough, there is an argument for your like mentality being hard to pierce could be something that gives you away in a certain scenario. Like if you're up against certain people who, like, if they have detect thoughts up and they just can't hear only yours in a way that I can actually give the game up. So it's like specific circumstances are worse, but most of the time it's better. You can't be tracked down. They can't scry on you. They can't hit you with like anything more powerful.
Yeah.
So it's almost worse against like widespread smaller magic.
It's funny because it makes like the opportunity for that spy versus spy trope of like if somebody tries to detect your thoughts, who's also a spy.
Yeah, you take it down. You just put on a cloak like a regular non-magical person. Yeah. And I imagine the disadvantage on the attack is kind of like the light around you is always refracted. It's like the blur spell almost.
Yeah, it's a small blur spell.
Yeah, they like try to shoot you and you're a foot behind.
Yeah.
But it's just messing with their vision. And it kind of reminds me of the suits in Scanner Darkly, where they're always shifting and changing, their voices modulated. You just can't get a beat on them. Yeah. This is not the same as that. You're not changing constantly, but you're just wrong. You're not in the right place.
I think the fun of it is it's not really specified how it's working, so you can kind of flavor it however you want.
It's true. It's kind of, I thought of it like just a subconscious, like your magic is always swirling around you. But there is an argument like if you like focus it, maybe you could just like, if your player wants to have a little like fun, you can mess with them in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I like the design of this one quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think it came together really well. The James Bond reference drove a lot of the features, a lot of the design sense.
Yeah, it's got a lot of James Bond. It's got a lot of Mission Impossible masks.
Yeah, I felt like natural. It's like, okay, well, you have to put on a mask.
Yeah.
Now you have to be able to do wizard stuff sneakily. Now you need a getaway plan, and like all things a good spy would have.
Yeah.
And then even the capsule, the ultimate, is like, well, no one can find him. He's a ghost. by the time you know what happened, he's gone dark. Like he'll be in the next country over.
Yep.
I do think it's maybe a little bit too strong.
Yeah, it's pretty strong.
A lot of the pieces individually are fine, but then combined, again, like stealth tactics with covert casting is a really deadly combination.
It's made the combination of them makes for a person that cannot be reacted to.
Yeah.
In an interesting way of just like no one even knows they were there. Which
it's cool.
It's very cool,
but
does make it so that like it's very hard to punish.
It is, yeah.
Which you do kind of have to punish a little bit.
Yeah, I think the only way you could really hit them is there's someone amongst their targets. Like if you have a captain of the guard, they're particularly perceptive. So even if they were hiding, it's like, okay, well, now they know something went down. They'll be scanning and they'll find you out. And the only thing that wards it off is like, okay, they can't like hear you doing things, but they'll still be on guard.
Right. Yeah, there's ways like beyond the disguise self. Its abilities primarily eliminate like sound and
visual.
Like, yeah. So,
it's also one of those subclasses similar to, I think, is it Glamour Bard? That it can just like override combat encounters.
Yes.
It's not even that it's strong in combat, which it is, but it can just negate a combat encounter. Yep. It's just like, oh, well, we walked past the guard because I'm so good at this.
Yeah.
We didn't have to deal with this in potentially bad situation because I'm so deceptive and powerful with my magic. So there is a little bit of the same quote problem with the Glamour Bard, where it's so powerful in the social interaction pillar that to the level that it could circumvent another one.
Right. It is nice that it's a wizard doing it, so it's less focused on the charisma aspect of it. That does make it different for the usual face archetype, because wizards are intelligence-based classes. It's a little more unique that it gets to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is incredibly strong at what it does, and it might be a little overtuned.
Yeah, it might. I think as is, it probably does land in S tier.
Yeah,
it's definitely up there. It's so good at one thing that it kind of gets around another, and even in combat, it's still good.
Yeah.
Being able to react, go invisible as a reaction. It's like, okay, like monsters get to do that, that's fine. When your wizard gets to do it, that's a whole other bag. Yeah, I do like the fun of maybe like you get hit and then you look him in the eye, you hit him with like charm person or something. Or
why
like,
would you do that?
Like, yeah, it's like, oh, to me specifically, your best friend. But yeah, it's an S tier.
Yeah,
it
high up there. To be. It's so good at what it does.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Path of the Torrent Barbarian.
A barbarian embodies many things: strength, resilience, ferocity. And there exists no natural force that exemplifies those very same traits like the mighty seas. Gentle and serene one moment, tumultuous and devastating the very next. Barbarians who follow the path of the torrent draw inspiration from the ocean, flowing freely through the battlefield before crashing upon it suddenly and violently like a thundering wave, bowling their enemies over. To fight against the crashing waters is an exercise in futility. No one can resist the tide. All who stand against you will be washed away. We've always wanted more water and ice-based things in general in Dungeons & Dragons.
Hell yeah.
Like, I've had enough of the plane of fire, honestly.
Yeah, people tend to like fire.
Everyone goes, it's always the fire plane.
Yeah.
It's the fire demons. So, Barbarian of the Tides.
Yeah, I think it fits very well.
Yeah, I felt like something where the Barbarian subclass that exists, of them, it felt odd that there wasn't something based around like the ocean. They're like, especially in flavor too, they're always like, oh, barbarians take from very powerful sources of inspiration and energy. And for some reason, the ocean, the like biggest natural force in the world, aside from like an earthquake or volcano, doesn't have anything.
Yeah, it's that weird thing that, especially when it comes to nautical inspirations in D&D, there's very little going on.
It's true.
In the base game, at least.
Yeah.
At third level, Shifting Waves grants you a number of new abilities, including a swim speed, as well as a Torrent DC, which applies to future features. You also gain Natural Swimmer and Undertow, which toggle on and off depending on whether or not you're raging. While you aren't raging, your swim speed is doubled and you can move through other creatures' spaces. But while you are raging, you can try to knock the first creature you hit each turn prone. Additionally, at third level, One with the Waters gives you proficiency with Navigator's tools and a skill of your choice from Stealth, Intimidation, Nature, or Survival. I think it all is pretty self-explanatory. Yeah,
you gotta get a swim speed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're the water barbarian.
No, yeah. And I like what you're doing with giving different abilities based on whether or not you're raging, so that you can actually get stuff outside of your rage.
Yeah, I think most subclasses are based around while you're raging, you get an extra bonus, which is nice, but it is also, I mean, Barbarian as a class is very dependent upon the rage feature, and I think it's kind of cool. Like, while you're not raging, it's almost like you're more fluid. So that's why your swim speed is doubled, and you can move through other creature spaces even if they're not friendly towards you. It's like you're so mobile across the battlefield. But then while you are raging, you don't have as much fluidity, but you just start barreling into people, and you're so powerful that you knock people over. Yeah, you go from this sort of gentle tide to a crashing wave. Yep. 6th level is where the meat of the subclass is, as you gain the Overflow feature. You gain an additional bonus while out of your rage, which allows you to stand up from prone with 5 feet of movement instead of half, and you can escape non-magical restraints by expending a use of your rage. While raging, you gain access to a bunch of new actions, which allow you to manipulate the battlefield at your discretion. Riptide lets you reposition yourself while knocking creatures prone. Maelstrom creates a whirlpool that draws creatures into melee range. And Wave Crash summons a wave of water that moves creatures up to 10 feet away from you. Each of these abilities uses your Torrent DC that you gain to 3rd level, and you can use 2 total per rage. So in an extended combat scenario, you may burn through multiple rages to keep using these abilities, but depending on the situation, if you're fighting large groups of enemies, you can start wiping them off the map. Each one summons a spectral crashing wave or a riptide.
Yep.
It's not real water, but
Yeah, you can't create water with them, but
yeah,
it's that thing of
you can't drink it. There's no drinkable water.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's no gaming the system.
It's like oh god, it's Demon Slayer.
Please no.
You can see them. It
No.
does visually happen.
No, please. I took a lot of not necessarily reference, but I think especially after seeing the Path of the World Tree Barbarian,
Yes.
I felt like a lot of shackles came undone, or like lots of subclasses in the 2014 rules, regardless of power level, were kind of limited in the scope of what they could do. I don't know if that was just Wizards being afraid to give the Barbarian too much, but the World Tree has such weird abilities.
Yeah.
It can teleport, it can draw people to it, it can do this crazy stuff. So after I saw that, I was like, all right, well, I feel like I could do a lot more.
Yeah. I think it's also nice that positioning is one of the shortfalls of the Barbarian as a base class, because people can just get away from you.
Yeah, just run.
And you don't really have great ways of pursuing them in comparison to other classes. So having the ability to control where people are is so nice on a Barbarian.
Yeah, where you go, where they are, Riptide, you can reposition yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Maelstrom, you can bring them to you. Wave Crash, you just see a line of them, knock them flat.
Yeah.
And it's all things that your allies can take advantage of. If you have to position yourself really well with this one, admittedly.
Sure.
It's the abilities are quite powerful and the range increases as you level up. But if you can sync up with your allies and manage to get into a good spot, I think everything gels together. You'll feel so much more freedom with this Barbarian than you would for a lot of other subclasses.
Yeah, it's very tactical. Swift Currents at 10th level lets you add your rage damage bonus to dexterity checks and saving throws while not raging. And now your overflow abilities only affect creatures of your choice.
So this takes overflow to the next level, because before you really had to calculate your positioning and moves and make sure your allies were not potentially caught in the areas of effect. But now you can actually choose to not affect them. I think there's an argument for maybe that makes the abilities a little less interesting, but also kind of sucks to have to constantly do that.
Yeah.
And it's once you level up, your mastery of the water is just more precise.
Yes, you control the waves now.
They're not so chaotic.
Yeah.
And I think just the flat rage damage bonus to dex checks and saving throws is just a really nice extra thing to have while not raging.
Yeah.
Barbarians also already have a good amount of bonuses to the dexterity thanks to Primal Sense, but the rage damage bonus is honestly kind of low. It felt like a nice little sprinkle to have.
Yeah, and I think it feeds into that idea of calm versus torrential ocean sort of thing. When you are not raging, you have this focus that allows you to dodge better and everything like that, which you lose a bit when you are raging, but for the sake of power.
Yeah, it makes sense. Tidal Force at 14th level allows you to become an avatar of the Raging Seas. Once per long rest, you can gain additional benefits for the duration of your rage. These include being able to walk on and breathe in water, having no limit on the number of times you can use your overflow features, and finally, being able to ignore grapple and restraint effects and difficult terrain. Yeah, becoming water comes with a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
You ever try to grab a wave?
Yeah, hard to pin down.
It was one of those things where it's similar to a paladin capstone. It's only once per long rest, and it's during the duration of this current rage.
Yeah.
So the worst case scenario is you use it and somehow you don't attack a creature or they don't attack you, and it ends that's kind of outside of your control. So the possibility of that existing made me feel like it's okay for this to be a little more powerful.
Yeah.
And rages are only a minute.
In 2014 they are. In 2024 you do need to adjust it because they last for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you can keep bonus actioning yourself to keep raging.
Yeah,
yes,
but
for
more stable.
But 2014,
Yeah.
for 1 minute, you just become water. So yeah, your overflow features aren't limited anymore because you are the ocean incarnate.
Yeah.
Essentially, you can walk on it, you can breathe in it. Everything you think would come with becoming water applies to this.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what you want for a capstone.
Yeah,
for
you're a
this.
force of nature.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
What would you expect other than becoming water?
What do you think? Where do you think this one lands?
I think it's strong. I
Yeah.
think it does. I think it's very good. It's very combat focused.
Yes. It doesn't have a lot going on. It's even
It
the
does have
out
a
of
bit
range
with
abilities.
the out of range abilities, but that does help it with exploration as well. Like you're not gonna get hit by traps that use dexterity
ones,
as much. Yeah, and one with waters gives you a little bit more utility.
That's true.
Yeah, I think it's very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't put it anywhere below
B.
Yeah.
But I'm wrestling with if it's B or A because the overflow abilities are like that's the big heft of this subclass.
Yeah.
It's all about battlefield manipulation and repositioning and dealing an okay amount of cold damage for the duration.
Yeah.
But it's a question of like, do those, especially at 10th level, once you don't have to worry about friendly fire, is that enough to bump it all the way to A compared to other barbarian subclasses?
I think it is, especially in comparison to other barbarian subclasses.
That's true. It kind of gets around the issue a lot of them have alongside mobility doing spread damage.
Yes.
Like barbarians chop one guy down really, really fast. And this is definitely a horde killer.
Yeah, you've added a cleave essentially with a lot of the abilities where it's hitting multiple things in front of it.
I can see someone arguing like, isn't this a little too busted because it covers issues the barbarian has. Like if someone's like, this is too strong, it can do so much splash damage and so much AoE damage. I think it's not overpowered. It's just a case of like, yeah, well, why can't any other barbarian do this?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's more of a fact. It's like, I don't think it's necessarily insanely powerful. It just does things that other barbarians don't do.
Yeah. I think it has that, similar to the Way of the Splitting Second, where you are trying to solve issues that the base barbarian has with a lot of the abilities.
Yeah.
And that does make it very strong, because there's a reason why Barbarian has some of the issues that it has.
Yeah. I think Overflow having to be an action, though, is what curbs it. Because I remember at one point it was going to allow you to replace an attack with it or something like that. And it just felt like too much. Like, if you could knock people prone and then hit them, that's the best case Barbarian scenario.
Yeah.
It just felt a little too powerful. So turning it into attack or into an action, depending on how many things you're fighting, that could curb your damage.
It's true.
Like, you could just hit one guy with all your extra attacks, deal your rage damage bonus as well as your strength damage bonus and the die of your weapon and any other benefits you have and feats you have.
Mm-hmm. Or
Or you just hit a bunch of guys for, I don't know, like a decent amount of D12 of cold. And do you want to eat into your rages? Depending on how many combat encounters you average, that might be a factor as well. But
That's true.
I think you're right. The overflow, because it's taking care of a problem the barbarian just naturally has. Like, on its own, the base class just doesn't have a lot of AoE damage, and just filling that gap could bump it all the way to A.
Yeah.
Just all on its own.
I think it does. I think it's incredibly strong at what it does.
Yeah.
And
even though it's limited to combat.
But yeah, I think it has enough from, at the very least, exploration that it's
not bad at it. It's not detrimental
yeah.
to it. It doesn't have any social interaction part, but hey, it's a barbarian. What are you gonna do?
I would love to see this thing in like a nautical campaign and see what it can do.
Yeah, that is
when
part of
there's
it.
Water everywhere.
Yeah, there is an argument of like half of its third level thing and a little bit of even its capstone rely on you being by water or in deep bodies of water.
Yeah.
But I tried to make it not so reliant on it because I could imagine how bad it would feel to be like, this has to be in a nautical campaign only.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a reason why it's making it special water so that you can just do it anywhere.
Yeah. I think A. Solid A.
Yeah. Next up, we have our take on a fighter subclass based around adapting to the flow of battle, the Stance Master.
Martial practice and training seeks to optimize the humanoid form, turning practitioners into deadly warriors. But Stance Masters understand that nature itself has already perfected this art, learning from the tactics of wild beasts fighting to survive every day. By incorporating aspects of these animals into their combat, these fighters become capable of feats beyond that of ordinary soldiers. To underestimate the natural world is a mistake one will not make again. This was our first and so far only Patreon voted subclass, with the stance-based fighter taking the lead in January.
Yeah, it was very fun to try and create based on a prompt.
Yeah, it was interesting. I remember lots of people. It was kind of a dead heat between it and martial with magic combination subclasses.
Yes.
So, maybe we'll take another crack at that down the line.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was fun at one point. They were so neck and neck. We were like, oh god, a tie.
We had to combine them.
We might have to combine them.
Yeah, but we wound up with the Stance Master.
Mm-hmm.
We took inspiration from lots of existing forms of martial arts that have basis in animalistic arts. We had, honestly, the hard part was having to choose which animals we wanted to focus on.
Yeah.
There was like
narrowing it down.
Yeah, like there's all those forms of kung fu that are directly named after the animals that they draw inspiration from, and it was taking some from that while trying to make them not so one-to-one in a way.
Yeah.
I think we landed at a good point where each animal, like if you just looked at all their individual abilities throughout the class, you would think that's a pretty solid combination that has a direct playstyle.
Yes.
Starting at 3rd level, you can choose to enter a stance based on one of 4 animals: wolf, tortoise, hawk, and snake. You can change which stance you are in at the start of each of your turns, with each stance giving you a pair of passive benefits that changes how you perform in battle. Based on your stance, you may be faster, stronger, tougher, etc.
The wolf stance is very aggressive and focuses on making attacks against creatures.
The tortoise stance increases your defensive capabilities and allows you to protect yourself as well as your allies.
The hawk is about mobility and repositioning yourself for the perfect strike.
And the snake stance is more of a reactive style. You take advantage of lapses in your enemy's decision making and strike when the opportunity is right.
At 3rd level, you also gain a new ability to use based on which stance you are currently in with the wild combat feature.
Yeah, I like these two coming together. It's just a nice package of based on which stance you're in, you have to calculate what action you like along with what passives you want. Sometimes they'd be one and the same, but at other moments you might want like the snake action, but you're kind of liking the wolf passives at the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want the tortoise defense, but you want to be using the hawk action as well for more mobility.
Yeah, like you have to weigh your options at the start of your turn to see like what would you benefit from most while you have that stance activated.
Yeah. It was fun coming up with the actions too, because I remember when we were coming up with these, initially we were a little lost, like maybe they should all be actions. Maybe they should all be bonus actions. We were trying to make them very symmetrical.
Yes.
And then when we broke away from that, I think they made a little more sense. Like the snake with being able to lengthen your limbs just as a bonus action felt very fun. It's like you just loosen your shoulders and for one turn you can strike farther. But for the wolf, it's an actual proper strike. It feels very wolfish being able to reduce their AC so another creature can get in afterwards as well.
Yeah, I think when it was symmetrical, it was very limiting.
Yeah, they all felt like they had to be kind of the same. It was hard to also just come up with interesting enough ways that were like, it's 4 varieties of hit someone and inflict a debuff on them, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. I think the way it ended up working with the 2 passives and an active ability on your turn that you can choose to use, it made for a sort of interesting thing, because then based on what fighter base ability you want to use on your turn, you might want to use something that is a bonus action, for instance with the snake, because you want to use your action for something else.
That's true. Yeah. At 7th level, the animal awareness feature gives you special reactions according to which stance you are in. I think this is where the class starts to really click. Like up till now, you've had these passives and you've had actions, and they're nice and they're cool to try to juggle. But like we're talking about the decision making that you have to constantly be thinking about while in combat, this just adds to it.
Yeah.
Now you have a reaction to consider. Like, oh, now before you had to juggle those 2, but a 3rd element, it's like, oh, but I want to hit this creature with a wolf strike, but I really need the I also want to have the tortoise reaction just in case. I can imagine being like a fun dynamic if you're a very strategic player.
Yes. Now you have to think of what's happening outside of your turn.
And some of the reactions are not just defensive, but like the tortoise one requires you to be hit.
Yes.
So you might want to take that stance against something that's a little more powerful, and you're like, there's a higher chance I will take damage, as opposed to the snake one, where you're like, oh, I'm just waiting for a miss, because then I want to use that one. So maybe stay in snake stance as opposed to tortoise or hawk.
Yeah.
Because you're unsure how the flow of battle will go. Or you just go straight offensive with wolf if you and your friend are just teaming up on someone.
I love the idea of just like planning out every move you're about to make based on what stance you're in. It's definitely a lot to put on a player, but for the players who want that sort of playstyle, they're gonna love it.
Yeah, it's a little hefty. Yeah.
At 10th level, Flowing Forms allows you to use an animal awareness reaction while in a different stance, and then change that stance if you desire.
Just turning the gas up on animal awareness.
Oh yeah.
I think it's kind of similar to how the overflow feature of the Barbarian gets upgraded.
Yes.
It was already solid, and this just gives you a little boost, because now you could be in wolf stance knowing you have to pin this one creature down, but for just a moment you use the tortoise reaction in order to prevent yourself from taking damage or something against a really essential attack.
Yeah.
And then you can still be in your aggressive position to take advantage, or switch to tortoise if your things are just going wrong.
Yeah, it lifts the restrictions on you a little bit, so it allows you to mix and match styles.
I think one fun combination is that you can start in the tortoise stance, so your AC is naturally higher, so creatures are more likely to miss you, and then when they miss, you can use the snake reaction to make an opportunity attack against it.
Yep.
And then you just remain in tortoise stance, because you don't want to switch to snake stance for whatever reason. So it's like you kind of mix and match and find fun combinations as you play.
Yeah. While it's nice that like in the early games you are sort of stuck in whatever you decide, I think in the later levels making it so that you are a little bit more free-flowing is a lot of fun. Like it rewards creative thinking even more because you're taking into account all of the reactions rather than what one you're currently in.
At 50th level, you unlock Stance Expertise, which further buffs your stances in the following ways that you see on screen right now. Again, it turns each stance up another level.
Yep.
I think at this point, each one is substantial enough that if it were hypothetically its own subclass, it would still be able to stand up against a lot of other martials.
Yes.
But the ability to mix and match becomes even more fluid.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge with designing this was making it so that it could still stack up to the Battlemaster. I think the ability to have access to all of them at once is definitely one of the ways that elevates it.
I think the snake one especially really comes into its own at this level.
Yeah.
The others up till here, like the tortoise has the ability to protect people, and the hawk is mobile, and those all gel really well. The snake up till this point has a little bit of like, the aspects are all very snake focused, but here I think it really comes alive, gaining an extra opportunity attack per turn, like which can just be a regular opportunity attack, like you strike out when someone's feeling vulnerable, or you use it with your animal awareness reaction. Which now, if two creatures miss you on in between your turns, that's 2 extra attacks you can make per turn without even them running away. And so if you position yourself really well, you're like a viper just waiting to take people down. Combo that with Sentinel, and you're just like a monster on the battlefield. I think it's really fun. It's always Sentinel. Nothing you can do about Sentinel.
Yeah, a lot of fun. And finally, at 18th level, you gain Stance Mastery, and each stance grows even further to its ultimate state.
Each stance reaches its ultimate form. It feels very monk-like in that way, which it's martial arts themed. It's always going to kind of go that way.
Yeah, absolutely. There was no other way to do the capstone for this, was to like add more on top of all of them.
Yeah, I think we had a plan going in pretty solidly for each stance. Like we said at the top, the wolf is very offensive, the tortoise is very defensive. But once I wrote out all the abilities and I could lay them out, like this is all the wolf and this is all the tortoise, this is all the hawk and the snake. Looking at them all, I was really happy how they all felt very cohesive.
Yes, they are each a specific playstyle, which is very nice. Yeah.
And the capstones, I feel like a lot of the abilities in the capstones aren't that surprising. They feel like a natural progression.
Yes.
Like the tortoise being able to use your AC in place of your strength or con. It's just, you've been really hardy and durable this whole time in terms of attacks. But now that just spreads to your body overall.
Yeah.
The hawk, obviously you gain a flying speed now.
Of course.
Just you're at the ultimate form of this stance. I think this one is kind of tricky to evaluate.
I think design wise, my one issue with this is that it's a lot of text.
It is a lot.
Usually when subclasses have abilities like this, it doesn't give them new abilities 4 times. Like each of the sections of it don't get abilities 4 times.
Yeah, like the Totem Barbarian, you choose
3.
one and then you go as well. This, you always have 4 actions, 4 reactions, whatever your passes are giving you available. It is a lot to juggle. It's not a very beginner-friendly subclass.
No.
Over time, I feel like you would just get accustomed to remembering, oh, well, this is what the snake's reaction is, and I need that right now. But it would take time regardless.
It does help that all of, like, the vibe of each of them is very obvious, so you kind of know like what each is going to give, like what situation each one is going to benefit in. This is also not like giving us this excuse, but I kind of like the fact that it's hard to master as a subclass. It's almost like, hey, getting a handle on 4 separate forms of martial arts is a hard thing to do. It's kind of, I'm not saying it was on purpose, but it's very flavorful. Sure. Yeah.
It's like, oh, only a true master shifts between forms at the perfect moment, yada yada. But I'm not gonna take that into consideration for the actual ranking.
It's got a very high skill floor and ceiling
in a way. Yeah. I think given that it could maybe underperform a little. I think like
yeah.
Also, since none of the abilities really require resources, they were all, I hesitate to say tuned down. Because it's still quite strong. Like the Vigilant Shell ability is still quite powerful.
Yeah.
Getting a fly speed is nothing to scoff at. But other subclasses can contribute a lot more, especially if there's something like the Battle Master that has the superiority die that it can use on every attack to churn out lots of different effects and deal more damage. So it could lag behind a little bit.
At the same time, all of the abilities, while being tuned so that they don't have a resource that they have to pull from, I think having access to so many potential solutions to problems in front of you is very strong.
The toolbox is just too deep.
Yeah.
You might be right.
But, on the other hand, thinking about the pillars of play, this is fully just combat.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything else. It's like, you could argue, oh, you get to fly now at the max level. Now you can help explore, but that's not a thing.
Yeah, once you hit 18th level, you get better at exploration.
Yeah. I do remember someone was saying this subclass is a little too strong because it has so many little things.
Yes.
Even that the 3rd level wolf passives alone are better than the champions like at 3rd level just on its own.
Yeah.
My argument against that is the champion is just a little weak. If I'm gonna, I'm like, that's not the subclass that I'm gonna compare it to. There's a reason why we said Battle Master for the comparison point, the data point. Yeah. Generally, champion is not the one I run to take down the Lich.
Yeah, it's not what you aspire to.
Yeah. I think it could be a high B.
Man.
Again, it's quite good. I think the high skill ceiling is maybe an argument for bumping it up.
Yeah.
Given that it requires so much brain power, and again, it's like little bit tuned down compared to all those because we didn't make anything that requires a resource. I know at one point we're juggling, oh, what if the tortoise can use your second wind to gain another bonus, and what if the wolf can use your action surge for something and stuff, and then it got a little too complex.
It was more that there weren't enough base fighter abilities give to each of them.
Yeah, that's true. They would have all used second wind.
Yeah, it was either second wind or action surge, and that's kind of all you get.
So
Extra
given that they're a little weaker, even though, like you said, you can definitely pick and choose whatever's necessary at each moment. You're like, oh, you're running, go to Hawk Foreign.
Yeah, I think for the same reason that I knocked down the Fabled Warlock for being very strong but too dense, I would also argue that it would be lower, like a B.
Yeah, because I think even if you took out the complexity issue, this wouldn't crack S. This would be A at most.
Yeah,
and I think due to the difficulty, even if you have a really good handle on things, there's the possibility you make the quote wrong choice. It's kind of hard to do that with something like maneuvers or key points and things like that. So I feel comfortable bumping it to a B.
Yeah, I think it can be an S in the hands of a particular player.
Sure, yeah. If you're fighting against the correct type of enemy.
Yeah.
You can output a lot, but it's not always the case.
I think it's a B.
And now onto the Adamant Soul Sorcerer.
Glinting like stars in the dark caverns below, few things inspire awe like the crystalline forms of diamonds. Beauty and durability melded into one unyielding form, refracting and intensifying light into a magical kaleidoscope. One could only hope to emulate such enduring majesty. Whether by earthen ancestry or intense magical pressure, your soul has been hardened like a pure adamant gem, granting your mind and body supernatural resilience. Magic flows through your body like light through a prism, mutable to your every whim. Be an impenetrable shield, a vibrant beacon of magical might, and even bestow a fraction of your eternal splendor to your allies. Shine brilliantly through every battle ahead.
The shiniest boy in all the land.
Oh, yeah. Originally, this one was going to be inspired by Iron. It's like an Iron Soul Sorcerer. But the more I worked on that, the more I kind of wanted it to be a melee-focused class would have been better, a better fit for it. And so I ended up reimagining it as Diamond, which I realized was a pretty good inspiration for something more spellcaster-focused. You have people like Emma Frost from X-Men. You kind of have that like psychic durability as well as physical durability. And yeah, that's what I wanted to bring to this subclass.
I think it lends itself really well to what you're describing, both physical and mental defenses. So I kind of like that too. I know we're still thinking about how to utilize Iron for a different subclass, but Iron does feel very like tempered. Steel is physical, but Diamond has a little bit more that you can play with in a magical realm.
Yeah.
So I like the decision to change.
Starting off at first level, you gain an expanded spell list. Once you have access to the metamagic options, you innately learn the transmuted spell metamagic option, with a few extra benefits. So yeah, a lot of them are very defensive things. You have shield and aid, which is a wild thing to have on a sorcerer spell list. But then you also have a lot of light, radiant-based things, guiding bolts, which also is kind of partially support, which is another thing that I wanted to add to the spells here.
Yeah, I think the flavor for all of them makes a good amount of sense. Like you were saying, the physical and mental defensive properties, sort of like Emma Frost. I can see that with Intellect Fortress, Stone Skin, some of the other one, and then just amplifying that into eventually greater restoration with some healing capabilities. It definitely puts into Unique's position for a lot of sorcerers.
Yeah, and for the transmuted spell difference, you can add radiant damage to your transmuted spell, which will probably be the best option you can choose.
A lot of the time. Yeah. It's all about light.
Yeah, I wanted it to be about light. You can literally refract spells into light.
Additionally, at first level, you also get the Adamant Form feature. which allows you to transform your physical form to match your sorcerer's origin. Your armor class becomes 10 plus your constitution and charisma modifiers. You also get advantage on constitution checks to maintain concentration. And finally, you can add your charisma bonus to saving throws against effects that would alter you physically or mentally. And you can only adopt this form twice per long rest.
Yeah, this is very strong for a first level feature.
Yeah, I know the intention was for this to be pretty easily slottable into the 2024 rules.
Yes, so in the 2024 rules, the Sorcerer gains the innate sorcery feature, which essentially allows it to boost itself temporarily for 1 minute. And I saw that as a fun opportunity to design Sorcerer's origins that would take advantage of that as a kind of form change.
Which is kind of lacking in the 2024 subclasses so far, disappointingly.
Yeah, it's weird. They have, like, the Draconic one grow wings like it used to, but it's not like during innate sorcery you get the wings. It's just another ability where you can give yourself wings.
Yeah.
It seems like a missed opportunity to sort of build around that new base ability of the class. I wrote this kind of future-proofed for when we would want to maybe adopt the 2024 rules for it to adjust it for that. But because of that, and because you get your subclass things at level 3 now for the 2024 rules, this is a little overtuned for a level 1 feature.
It does a few too many things.
Yeah.
It gives you, like, giving you a magical unarmored defense alongside concentration bonus, alongside all your saving throws being really good. I think the way we would, if we were to take another crack at this, to make it not intended for 2024, would just be like move that to maybe 6th level. But then it would shuffle around the other subclass abilities, so it would require a good amount of redesigning. But it's like a weird spot. It's too strong for 1st. If it goes to 6th, then you could definitely keep stuff like the charisma bonus to saving throws.
Yes.
At that level, it's fine. I think it's just too powerful for 1st.
Yeah, I agree. At 6th level, you gain the Refract Energy feature, which fittingly allows you to reflect damage you receive while in your adamant form, so long as the type is one matching your transmuted spell options. You gain resistance to that damage type until the end of your next turn, and you make a spell attack against a creature you can see within 60 feet of you, dealing the same amount of damage on a hit.
I think the fantasy starts to come more alive at this level.
Yeah, it's
like while you're in the diamond form, anytime you take, I know it's not necessarily limited to magic, but it being one of the main 5 or core 5 damage types in D&D.
Or Radiant now.
Or Radiant, that's true now. And being able to just refract that back at someone is kind of sick. You just take a fireball and this like line of red shoots out and hits another person.
Exactly. Yeah. Splitting the damage, just like absorbing a little bit of the energy and then reflecting it back was definitely, this was the thing that I wanted it to do from the beginning. Was like, oh, that would be an amazing ability to just be able to like absorb and redirect sort of spell energy or just elemental energy.
Yeah, it's fun translating the scientific properties of a diamond into magical adaptations. We kind of did something similar for Sortember a few years ago.
Yeah.
Where we had a diamond sword that could similarly transmute the damage that you were dealing into a different one, or transmute the damage that a ally spell was about to cast.
Yep.
So you could turn that fireball into cold necrotic or whatever else you wanted.
This was 100% based on that.
Yeah.
I wanted to take the same logic and apply it to a player class.
This would be a cool way, I think, if we shifted Adamant form to 6th level to make this just a... Because the way it's written, it's something that already is only active while you're in your Adamant form. It could technically, if we moved Adamant form down to 6th level, it could just get folded into Adamant form. It's one of the benefits you have with it. I see what you were doing with like, oh, your Adamant form is even better. But if we move it down, again, theoretically, if we ever take another crack at this, to be like, okay, Adamant form's too strong for 1st level, push it to later. Then it just is an aspect that the form gives you.
Yeah, it could maintain all of the benefits and have this as one of the benefits.
Yeah, this is just one of the like bigger abilities that it that the form grants. I think is a good way to do it, maybe.
That is true.
At 14th level, you gain use of the Diamond Crystals feature, where you can shortcut your way to the benefits of a short rest over the span of one turn by wrapping yourself in a crystalline cocoon. While you're in this state, you are petrified and immune to all damage, and the only thing that you can do during that turn is redirect magical spells that target you specifically. When you emerge from the cocoon, alongside the benefits of the short rest, you also take on your Adamant form for its normal duration. And of course, you can spend hit dice to regain hit points as though you just finished a short rest. And once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, or you spend 4 sorcery points.
Yeah. You can essentially just take yourself out of fight temporarily to heal yourself and gain any benefits you would over a short rest.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously there's the benefits of using it in combat to become immune to damage for one turn, even if it takes you out of the fight for a turn, which is a big loss. The benefits of getting a short rest are so huge, especially for a sorcerer, that might be worth it. I'm trying to think of a situation. There's not too many situations where your party goes, there is not the time for a short rest right now, unless you're really like gunning for it.
Yeah.
So you're just like, everyone wants to go, but I need the short rest right now. You could theoretically just be like, hold on for 6 seconds, pop it before battle, and walk back in with a short rest worth of advantages.
Yeah, you can do it outside of combat. The benefit of doing it inside of combat is that spell redirection, which, while people would think is to prevent you from being affected by spells that are targeting only you by enemies, but I see as you creating a relay point for your friendly spells. You can, say you crystallize yourself around a corner from an enemy that another spellcaster can't see. You can be the person who sees the person and launches the spell from that area instead.
The funny thing about that fantasy is the thought, like, you're trying to catch them off guard or something.
Yeah, it's not a sneaky thing.
Like, God, what could have just shot that fireball at me? Where did that laser come from?
No, it's more just like
you're
getting
safe
around
from it.
Cover. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and it's kind of limited in use because you have to be fighting something that can cast spells that target, and they have to shoot you specifically. So, like I said, it's mostly not likely going to interact with an enemy.
No.
More likely, your ally hits you with a single target spell and then you just shoot it off elsewhere. Maybe gives you an extra range. Eldritch Blast. I think being able to change the damage type of the spell is especially useful.
Yep.
Because just like in case your wizard doesn't have the right spells at the moment, or they're not able to cast something that deals the damage you need. Yeah. Being able to essentially turn them into a sorcerer for a moment comes with all those benefits. Yeah.
That was the fun of just continuing the logic of the crystal refraction theme throughout this.
Yeah.
Finally, at 18th level, you gain the Unbreakable feature, which allows you to automatically succeed on saving throws for 3 sorcery points, or 2 sorcery points if you're in your Adamant form. So yeah, if you ever wanted legendary resistances.
Yeah. This one's crazy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It's 18th level, so I was like...
Yeah. It's
what
at that
balance
point, balance goes out the window. I know everyone says it is wild to think about. Yeah. Because the fantasy and the flavor of the subclass is so present with this. Mm-hmm. Like, again, Emma Frost.
Yeah.
Like, how do you stop a person who's made of the hardest material in the world and their brain is inaccessible to you?
Yeah.
It's like, at least for a little bit, you just walk through anything.
Mm-hmm. Be unaffected by
full diamond.
Something.
Yeah.
Full stop. Whatever it is, if there's a saving throw for it, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see how, with a really extended fight, if you actually do manage to chunk through all your sorcery points across your meta magic options and anything else that you're trying to do. It's still a lot of sorcery points you got to eat through.
Yeah.
At 18th level, you have enough that combat probably doesn't even last long enough to eat through them. So I think this gives you just another sink to throw them into if it's a really important fight.
It's the cherry on top. It's not like the most impactful of your abilities. It is the kind of like encapsulation of everything that this Sorcerer's Origin is about.
Yeah. I think this subclass is very fun, flavor-wise. It's got the problem with the Adamant form where it was sort of gonna be designed for 2024.
Yeah.
And even though, again, I know they're reverse compatible, whatever, it's not quite the same.
No.
And that causes some issues. I think the Chrysalis and the Refract Energy both being similar to each other is kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's like just another way for you to apply it, and then getting an additional short rest can be huge during the course of a mission.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's only like for yourself.
I think you're absolutely correct on the Adamant form and Refract Energy. Like, if we wanted to redesign it, having them be part of the same 6-level feature would probably be the way to go.
Yeah,
Just
they
have
could
to
gain
figure
something
out
else.
a different first-level feature that's a little bit less impactful.
Yeah.
But I do think it's strong.
It's very strong, but kind of in a bad way.
Yeah.
I think. And part of it is the Adamant form is too strong early on. I also like giving legendary resistances, quote unquote, even at a cost is always really scary for players.
Yeah.
It might be something where I think that the design suffers for it. It probably needs maybe more tuning.
Yeah, I think so.
I think like all the abilities work super well for the fantasy of being a person made of diamond and how magic interacts with it is so cool.
Yeah.
But it probably needed, like, if we like took another crack at it alongside moving Adamant form down 6th level, which then we could replace it with something else. I think it could, another like pass in the workshop would help it a lot.
Yeah, I think it needs a little refinement. It needs some faceting, one would say.
People cannot see, I just pointed at him. I realized after I did. What would you say? Like power wise, it's high up, but I don't know if I'd want to put it like in the same tier as like the monk or anything, because I think it's got more issues design wise.
Yeah.
It's this thing where it's like power wise definitely up there.
Yeah.
But it probably needs more work. So I don't know if that means we should bump it down or keep it high.
Yeah, I think the play style of it. Well, the thing with the play style is it's not that it's hindered by a kind of like mechanical obtuseness that kind of brought down other things that were strong.
Yeah.
But it's just a little overtuned. Very like it would be just strength wise S tier.
I think one thing I will say about it is it's like Sorcerer plus because it's like you can succeed saving throws. You can regain a short rest, like just on the fly. You have all the bonuses from your Adamant form. The 6th and 14th level features don't really are outside of your control.
That's true.
Refract Energy requires someone to hit you with something, and you gain the benefits of the crystalline form. But while you're in there for that turn, you are out of the fight. If someone doesn't hit you with a spell, then you'll get the obviously come out with the benefits as well. But kind of what it's a subclass that doesn't really like actively give you new options of what to do. It's just a really good like vanilla sorcerer almost.
You know?
It's like, you know what? It's like you're a sorcerer with advantage on constitution checks and your saving throws are really good. Eventually you just succeed on them. I hadn't thought about it until just now that I'm like, oh, it's just like a really good base sorcerer. But it's not like the other Sorcerer's Origins where it's like, here's a new tool to tinker with.
Yeah, it is. Well, the new tools are there. They're just reactive tools. Which are
outside of your control, which is a little unfortunate.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about that until now as well. And that might be an issue for it, for sure.
Reactive, defensive, and just a general plus to everything. Your saves are better. Your concentration's better.
Yeah, it could use something that's a little bit... Well, I mean, it has maybe one thing that is a more of an active thing with the transmuting options. But, yeah, it could use...
Which is already, again, something that all sorcerers have.
Yeah.
Like, you get transmuted form for free, but sorcerers have that too.
Yeah.
So it didn't hit me until just now, like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, yeah, you bring up a
power wise it's still like good. Maybe we bump it down just because it probably needs another few minutes in the oven, essentially.
Yeah.
What do you
A little more pressure.
B? A little more pressure? Yeah. B?
I don't know. I think it's too strong to be
for
a B. So
that's what I feel
it should
too.
probably land an A. But maybe it's a lower A.
Lower A, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it needs another pass. Maybe we can do that sometime. Or if we want to adopt these for 2024, we'll take a real shot at it.
Yeah. Moving on, we have the Circle of Seasons Druid.
The only constant is change. Stagnation is the true death. Druids of the Circle of Seasons swear by this philosophy, embracing and celebrating change instead of resisting the inevitable. Just as winters pass to welcome new life and summers turn to crisp and cold, these druids are never in a state of rest. Wielding the essence of change itself, a druid of this circle is an ever-shifting force of nature, never the same from one moment to the next.
All right, one of the druid circles that we were surprised doesn't exist.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it on some threads and discussion forums of people wondering what is still surprisingly missing from D&D. And the druid that interacts with seasons and nature more directly still not being present was pretty odd.
Yeah, for as as much as druids are pegged as the tree huggers of of the D&D world, not a lot of tree stuff.
No,
actually.
A proper plant druid is still also a glaring omission.
Yeah.
I think would be really fun.
This was 1 degree separated from plant to, the changing seasons.
At second level, your attunement to the seasons grants you specific bonuses depending on which season you are currently tied to. These benefits also apply while you're transformed by your wild shape, and each season has its own unique abilities and theme that carries throughout the rest of the class.
Spring is focused around the freedom of movement and life.
Summer concentrates on damage, both your own and your allies.
Autumn deals in death, delivering and preventing.
And finally, winter focuses on sturdiness and restriction. At the end of each long rest, you can decide which season you wish to be tied to until you complete another long rest.
At second level, you also gain access to Druid Circle spells, but the spells you have access to change depending on the season.
It's a pretty hefty list of spells.
Yeah, having 4 separate spell lists is pretty interesting.
It was definitely a bit of a hurdle just going through all the spells available that we could actually make use of. And figuring out which ones felt most appropriate. I think going through them gave me a lot of direction for what felt fitting for each season.
Yeah, I think that you honestly nailed it for this design. At each level, you get 2 options that seem very much based around whatever season they are associated with.
It's funny because I feel like spring, autumn, and winter kind of have a dual flavor going on. Like in spring deals with movement as well as a little bit of healing. Winter has Arm of Agathis type spells, makes you a little tougher, but also being able to restrain people with Hold Monster or a Slow. And then the summer spells is just fire.
I mean,
it's tough with fire.
I feel like that's always what happens with fire in every fantasy thing ever. It's just it's just the more damage one.
The summer spells were by far the easiest. Like, oh, look, it's Scorching Ray and Heat Metal and Daylight and Fireball. It was pretty simple to choose those ones.
Yeah, but I think you have a nice, there's defensive support and offensive things that are still within that theme of fire and light.
That's true. Yeah, Fire Shield and Fairy Fire and stuff still give a little bit of more utility. Yeah, but I think the fun of being able to wake up and decide based on the mission you're going on with what feels more useful is just cool.
Yeah, this is the most preparation that you'll ever have for a druid.
I also like the fantasy of waking up and like you indicated to this in the artwork as well. Like if you wake up and you choose the winter season, maybe their hair is a little frost tipped and maybe some of the excess leaves have fallen away if you choose to go that way.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fun for role play with this
Yes. Oh my god. Playing like an Eladrin and
Especially,
like,
yes.
Yeah. Just like doubling up on the seasons that you're attuned to for it. And just like putting it directly into your current personality and appearance.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
At 6th level, you gain the Seasonal Blessings feature, which allows you to manifest your season on the battlefield. By expending a use of your wild shape, you can create a small sphere of energy, whose abilities change depending on the season you are currently in. So the fun of coming up with this one was making sure each of the effects felt like they were in line with the expanded spell lists as well.
Yes.
Like Spring grants some temporary hit points to keep you alive. Autumn does the opposite. Healing is actually halved for people of your choice in them. So it was kind of fun to come up with this. It was difficult to come up with something after such a expansive spell list, having access to 10 at a time, but 40 spells.
There's a lot of coverage there.
A lot of coverage. So coming up with something afterwards just felt like I had to lean into the direction. Like the winter one is also restrictive on movement, and the summer one giving a bonus to allies' attack rolls. It all felt like things had to gel together. It wasn't much of a case of like, oh, it has to do something different. It has to just kind of hammer that point in even more.
I think the nice thing about them is that they are granting those bonuses to other creatures as well, whereas your spell list is generally more what you can do.
That's true.
This is very specifically about an area of effect that you change the rules in.
Yeah. And being able to move the sphere as a bonus action, I think, is also kind of fun. Like druids, and with the exception of maybe wanting to expend your other wild shape. Outside of that, this might be the priority for what you're trying to do, because you can use this to manipulate the battlefield, especially at higher levels. Once your wisdom modifier is at a +5.
Yeah.
Then the sphere is so large that having a 25-foot radius sphere that halves movement is pretty significant. But I think at that point is a high enough level that it could be not as much of an issue. It is also, all these effects are not so game changing that it felt alright, that even if the sphere becomes sizable, it's like a bonus to attack rolls, your wisdom modifier. It's good. That's not the only thing that's going to make or break a combat session.
Yeah, it's a small bonus, but it's definitely relevant.
Yeah.
And I think it's balanced very nicely.
Yeah, and also there's always the possibility you just fall unconscious. You can't just just casually put it somewhere. You can still get knocked out.
It's true. At 10th level, you gain the Early Forecast feature, which allows you to expend a use of your wild shape to forcibly change the season you are currently attuned to. You can only change to the next season accordingly, so from spring to summer to autumn to winter, and then back to spring. Doing so updates the passive benefits you currently have, as well as your circle spells.
The global warming feature. Just push it
wasn't
ahead.
Supposed to be summer yet.
I think it's being able to adapt to the oncoming circumstances after your long rest, but being able to change on the fly if needed.
Yeah,
I think it's just so fun.
It is an ability that is making it so that you are more able to quickly change your current sort of play style, but the extra restriction on it that you have to go in order of the seasons is kind of a nice touch that keeps it feeling still very tactical and very like preparation based, where you can't switch to exactly what you want necessarily for the given moment, but hopefully the moment changes in a way where you would benefit better from the next one.
There was a moment where we were deciding whether or not you should be able to change to anything you like. It's kind of like, oh, you're the master of change now. You're at such a high level of a druid that you're capable of changing from like summer all the way back to spring, or winter to autumn, or winter to summer, and vice versa. But it felt like it just didn't quite feel right.
Yeah, sometimes the eliminating the flavor doesn't really feel like, even if it is the best option for a player, it feels wrong to eliminate that flavor.
Yeah, it's like, is it worse this way? Yes.
Yeah.
100%. But it felt wrong to allow you to manipulate the weather to that degree, essentially.
Yeah. You got spells for that.
Yes, exactly. I think it's also fun because now you can't always choose the quote optimal option.
Yes.
You have to, but there is a fun in being able to decide, oh, I've been on summer mode. We've just been going. Maybe the fight's not quite going so well. So you could then swap to autumn and gain access to some spells that are, instead of being damage focused, you can hit people with Death Ward, or you can raise dead if needed.
Yep.
Just little alternate ways to support your allies. Or if you're on winter and you've been trying to like hold some people down, but they still manage to get away, you just swap to spring, and now you're sprinting faster than they are.
Yeah. I like the emergent tactics that evolve from you switching from one to the other. Of like they have relationships with the ones that are previous or following them.
I like it because it's kind of similar to what we're describing with the Stance Master.
Yeah.
Where that was a little more constantly changing, shifting, adapting, and this doesn't have quite as much freedom. But I think there is still a good amount of room for people to figure out a good way to start the battle is usually with spring. So we can all charge in quickly. I set up my seasonal blessing, and then once we're in range, I just swap to summer. All my spells are there to support my allies.
Yeah.
At 14th level, you become a Master of Change. The passive benefits that you gain from your chosen season all just get better across the board.
Yeah.
A very straightforward capstone.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, just it felt like the spell, alongside the expanded spell list, as well as the ability to summon the sphere of your season, the subclass already gave you a lot to do, as well as managing which season you're attuned to.
Yeah.
Giving you another like modular active ability felt like just doing a lot. So just making it's not the most exciting capstone, but I think it's just solid. None of these are something you complain about.
No.
Getting a free resistance for autumn, or your concentration just not being broken as long as it's a druid spell in winter. All really solid choices.
Yeah.
And I think summer is maybe the most conditional, but if you can make good use of it, and again, I think summer became interesting once we leaned into not just you dealing damage, but allowing your allies to perform better as well.
Yeah.
Because now if you hit someone with fire damage, the next attack against it gaining advantage is not necessarily meaning that you'll hit them next. Maybe your barbarian, your fighter follows up, and they can hit them with something else.
Yeah, chances are you're using a spell to deal that fire damage, which will most likely take a full action anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's more like turning all of your fire spells into a guiding bolt.
Yeah, it's just tuning all of these seasons up a notch.
Yeah, I think that they're exactly what you would want from each of the, like, for passives for each of those seasons.
Yeah.
It completes the whole class in a nice way.
It's pretty strong. I don't think it's that much stronger than some of our other subclasses, especially. It gives you a lot of options, but the fact that your access to them is limited by the season you have.
Yeah.
The most powerful part is that you can shift according to what you need, especially starting at 10th level.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like, each of the spell lists are fine, and the seasonal blessing is good. They're all kind of like, nothing I think is so powerful that it makes the subclass itself like pop. I think it's just the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
I think, in a way.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
It doesn't have any specific feature, in my opinion, that makes it so outstanding.
No.
But it's a very solid subclass. It's got a lot of flexibility and a lot of different options that you can use to adapt.
Yeah, the flexibility is definitely its strongest point.
I think one thing I guess you could say is maybe that it eats away at your wild shapes.
Mm-hmm. Which are limited.
They're pretty limited. It also depends how much you value them. I mean, especially now, even Wizards is kind of leaning into the direction of creating druidic subclasses that are not necessarily based on you turning into animals.
Yes.
I feel like before they had a very strong split of you're either an animal or you're casting spells. And now they're hitting this third category of your wild shape doesn't turn you into an animal, it turns you into something else.
Hmm.
It's not quite as extreme as the Circle of Stars druid,
No.
where you actually gain like a celestial form, but your season changing is kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
You gain access to new magic, you gain access to new seasonal blessings and new passives.
Yeah, you're not shaping your own shape into something wild. You're shaping the world around you to match your attunement.
Yeah.
Which, I think is a fun interpretation of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's just a solid one.
It is solid, yeah.
It delivers on the flavor really well, and power-wise, it's keeping in pace with a lot of other ones.
Yeah.
The ceiling is Moon Druid, and it's not even close to Moon Druid.
Yeah, especially for 2014 Moon Druid.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. My original impression of it was just with the pure number of options you get, it was very strong. But it is that you are limited to whatever options you currently have. Anyway.
Yeah.
And,
it's like if you took any one of these spell lists and gave it to like a wizard, you'd be like, that's a good spell list.
It's good. Yeah.
I don't think anything on there is necessarily making you suddenly go like, oh, this is just too much for this to deal with. So
it's not overpowered by any means.
No. Yeah, no, I think it's probably a middle of the pack A.
Yeah. I was going to say
I don't know
A
where
well.
it lands amidst the other A's.
Yeah.
I know most of ours so far have landed in that tier, but
kind of where you're aiming for.
It is. I think it's kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
This is a good standard.
Yeah.
I feel like. I think this is one of the ones we wound up with a really good spot in the middle.
Yeah. I think the nice thing about it is it perfectly delivers on the fantasy that you would want from this flavor of being centered around the seasons and everything like that. This is exactly what you would want.
Yeah, I'd feel happy with introducing this to someone who felt like that was an option that was lacking for playing a druid.
Yeah. This is definitely not someone's first druid.
No, probably not, yeah.
No, honestly, no new player should be playing a druid anyway.
It is true, yes.
But yeah, this is more complex than most druids. But I think to its benefit, not to... It's by kind of like locking itself out of the other options that you aren't attuned to at that moment, it makes it still very easy to play.
Yeah. Yeah, solid A.
Yeah, I think it's a solid A.
Finally, to close out our base 12 classes, we have our Ranger, the Slimehost.
The very existence of a Slimehost seems to deny all logic. Rangers of this conclave have bonded themselves body and brain to a caustic ooze that lives symbiotically within them. Many cannot explain the origin of their mysterious condition, but as their connection deepens, the boundary between Ranger and ooze becomes blurrier and blurrier. As their abilities grow mightier and weirder in turn, it seems hardly surprising that many remain wary of these Rangers and their internal companions.
So yeah, finishing off our subclass month with a little bit of body horror.
Yep. This is a gross boy.
Most of it was just coming from the Ranger already has the Beastmaster, the Drake Warden, and it feels like it would be cool if Wizards every year goes all the way and kind of creates a bond with a lot of other creature types, and we want to take our hand at it.
Yeah, I feel like whenever we're thinking about creatures, we're always thinking about the ones that don't have a lot of support.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of like high-level plant monsters when we've designed oozes. Oozes don't have a lot of love.
No.
And it seems like it would be fun to do a pet class, quote unquote, that has an ooze at its center.
This one was tricky because I remember we were going through lots of iterations. It was initially like, should it be what we went with, like it's in your body, it is your blood, it's in your veins, or should it be a little guy that comes along with you, or maybe it's in your body but you can project it outwards, almost like Shino from Naruto, where he has all of his insects living inside his body but they can come out to fight for him. We kind of landed on a weird different option that we hadn't even considered initially.
Yeah, it's close to the third option, but
similar,
a little different.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into that.
At third level, you gain the Slime Gift feature, which, as your body is now host to an ooze, You gain a number of benefits, which include resistance to acid damage, getting a 5-foot bonus to your reach on melee attacks, and getting an advantage on ability checks regarding grappling. All things you'd expect standard from an ooze. Kind of slippery guys, they're hard to nail down.
Yep.
Your limbs are unnaturally long, probably because they're a little more squishy than they were before.
Yeah, I imagine kind of like, I mean, there's obviously like the One Piece inspiration.
Oh,
of
yeah.
Your little gum. But there's also like the Street Fighter monk that has the stretchy limbs.
Yeah, I'm a
flexible.
Smash player. I don't remember his name right now, but
yeah, you're a little stretchier. Your joints are a little less connected.
I hate the idea of the resistance to acid damage because my visual of it is someone like spills acid on you and it eats away the top layer of your skin and then just hits like a green layer and people are like, what is that? Explain.
I hate that.
I hadn't thought about it until now, and I was like, oh, yeah.
But the more insidious part of this class is the second ability you gain at 3rd level, Ooze Puppet. With this, you can transfuse a certain amount of the slime within your body into a dead humanoid or beast, and can puppet them around as a zombie. The zombie uses the stats of a regular zombie from the monster manual, except that it's an ooze, and when it dies, it explodes into a ball of acidic damage that increases in power as you level up. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier per long rest.
This is when the things really clicked.
Yeah. The implications of you now being able to puppet around another body with the same ooze, it's a little unsettling, yeah.
I think
it's unsettling implications.
Yeah, and this was gonna be originally a later ability. This is obviously inspired by the Circle of Spores Druid's ability, which I think it gains at a later level. But considering it's capped by your Wisdom modifier, it felt like it wasn't too bad to drop down, as well as the fact that the additional stuff we gave it its own twist.
Yeah.
It was kind of just the horrific idea of this shambling zombie like walks around, someone catches keen to it, they shoot it with an arrow, and the body just disintegrates, and everyone around it is just spattered with this like flesh burning acid. It was horrible, but it's kind of sick.
Yeah, and I do like getting your sort of pet for it a little earlier, just so that you have time with it.
Yes, and especially it was odd when we gave it later in the subclass because it felt just like something that an additional way to use your slime got tacked on.
Yeah,
and I kind of liked building it from giving it early on meant we could build on the abilities a little bit more.
Yeah.
For example, you gain the Caustic Touch feature at 7th level. Your Ooze Passenger has now wormed deeper into your body. So now you and your Ooze Puppets deal an additional 1d6 acid damage the first time each turn you hit a creature with a melee attack.
Yep.
So yeah, just the ooze. You are now more ooze.
More ooze.
And your puppets are also more ooze.
Yes.
Everyone is more ooze, yeah.
You get to improve both yourself and your pets throughout the leveling up process.
Yeah, this turning into sort of a small, like not an army leader, but I liked the direction we got it once we figured out moving ooze puppets to 3rd level. It became like the best and most horrifying way to play this subclass is to always have a host of corpses at your disposal at any given moment and just walk around with this little posse of zombies that explode into goo upon death.
It's the necromancer carrying around a bag of holding just filled with bones.
100%.
Yeah.
Just horrifying, but I'm like, yeah, if you can make good use... Like, there's a high ceiling to this one, I think.
Yeah.
Because if your players do manage to walk around and just find enough dead bodies that they store in their bag of holding or they just put onto the cart and then they walk around with it. If they want to go to all that effort for one ranger, the ranger can now walk around and have all these zombies with them.
Yeah. At 11th level, your ooze allows you to have even more of a connection with your ooze puppets with the Hive Mind feature. You now gain advantage on attacks against creatures that are within 5 feet of an ooze puppet. Your puppets also now act similar to a familiar created by the Find Familiar spell, allowing you to see through their eyes and hear through their ears, so to speak. And finally, you can trade places with an ooze puppet as long as it is on the same plane of existence as you, even as a reaction to taking damage.
It's a hefty one.
Yeah.
But this is what we were talking about with being able to build off the corpse puppets since you've had them for a while now.
Yep. Again, unsettling implications throughout this subclass with the just being able to trade places with an ooze puppet. Where it's like,
This honestly is kind of doing what I wish the Circle of Spores or like a fungal type subclass would do.
Yeah.
Where there's like these huge networks of mushrooms in forests with like all these mycelium that are connected. And scientists say they're technically one big organism.
Yeah.
And they can talk across miles. And that's kind of what I wanted to get across with it. And I wish the fungal ones did this. But in lieu of that, slime.
Yeah.
Ooze. It's
there's mimic colonies. Yeah.
Other people, I like the thought of when you first use corpse puppets, you're just like, oh yeah, you know, I'm commanding that zombie. I'm still Ranger Prime. And then you swap bodies with them, and you can see through their eyes, and you're like, I don't know what's happening, but I don't quite like it.
Yeah, your party members are definitely going to get a little concerned that you can just sort of like pop into a completely different body and just be like, it's fine, it's still me, guys.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun way to like, quote, non-magically give these abilities to someone. Yeah. Like, Find Familiar there's a magical bond between you and your familiar. Trading places with someone as a teleport spell. It's like, oh, there's some magic arcana going on. And this is like, there's, quote, no magic here. It's just, I was over here, and now I'm not. I'm over there. Like, I don't like this. Something's wrong. The biggest flavor break in there is just like, all your gear goes with you, sure. But the idea of your brain getting uploaded to another body in a moment, you're like, explain.
I love this one for that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that as like it's sort of scientifically explaining magical abilities.
Kind of, yeah. Because like
pseudoscience, but science.
Yes, and the abilities are just good. I think like up till now, like again, the zombies were like we wrote just meat shields essentially. Yeah. They were like you walked around them, they tanked some damage, and they allowed you to deal more acid damage, but that was the extent of their function. And now
they have support.
They have supports. Being able to swap places with them as a reaction to taking damage is obviously really valuable. And it's they just have to be on the same plane of existence. So you could technically do the nonsense where you keep a zombie at home base, go out, do something dangerous, and then swap with them.
Yep. As long as you do it within an hour, you're fine.
Within an hour, you're fine. The Find Familiar part, I have the fantasy of you raise 5 zombies that would like put shawls on them and walk them into a city, and now you got 5 spy cameras you just keep flicking through.
Oh god.
Essentially, as like trying to make this not entirely combat focused open a lot of doors.
Yeah.
Even though obviously the swapping is combat focused, but
partially, but it can also be utility.
Yeah, it's like being able to use the zombies for more than just hitting things really hard.
Yeah.
Made it a lot more fun.
Yeah, I really like how this like opens it up.
At 15th level, finally, all is one. At this point, it's hard to say where you end and the ooze begins, as your bond has become almost indecipherable. Your previous resistance to acid damage is now increased to full-on immunity, and acid damage dealt by you or your ooze puppets now ignores resistance to acid damage and treats immunity to acid damage as resistance instead. You can now also move through a space as narrow as 1 inch without expending extra movement, and you're immune to being knocked prone or grappled. The transition is fully complete. I just like the flavor, the fantasy of this one. The capstone, like you've been kind of unnerving for a while, and then finally your allies just watch you slither through a crack in the wall. You're like, all right, he's gone, right?
Yeah. This is a completely different entity than that they started as.
There's a funny way to play this as like almost like the person who gets bit in the zombie movie at 3rd level, and they just don't tell their allies. And then one day their arms are a little too long, and your party's like, what's happening here?
Yeah, it's a very unique, transformative player option.
Yeah.
Where normally people would be going for like, oh, I want to play a vampire. Oh, I want to do like some kind of lich sort of thing. This is, I want to be ooze. I want to slowly become more and more ooze.
I wish to be slime.
I wish to be slime.
Yeah. Again, just more positives. Your resistance gets upgraded.
Mm-hmm.
And the immunity to being knocked prone or grappled is another thing that I just liked the fantasy of.
Yeah.
Because you can't knock a slime prone.
Yes, because it's a blob.
With a ball. So what does that mean for you?
Yeah,
what
what does that look like as a person?
Because I definitely thought of like someone trips you, you fall to the ground, you just splatter, and then you just come back up in your normal standing position.
This guy is absolutely doing like the T-1000 stuff.
Oh yeah.
Getting pinned to a wall from the front and then just flipping.
Oh, there's 100%.
Phasing, yeah.
Yeah, you walk through the jail cell.
This is absolutely that like Terminator 2.
I hadn't thought about him as a T-1000, but now, especially with this kind of stuff, that you can definitely flavor it as such.
Yeah, you can be a ferrofluid ooze.
Yeah.
Just go straight up metal.
Oh, that's really scary now with the thought of the zombies also being like the robots. It is fun.
You can make this a Terminator.
Yeah. I think this subclass has kind of maybe a low floor, because like the zombies are pretty powerful, especially if you just start putting your ASIs into wisdom early on, because you really want to lean just into that ability. Like, you could have technically like more zombies at your command than you should at a given moment.
Oh yeah, you can make a lot.
Yeah, like you even like 2 extra zombies at 3rd or whatever level, and you rock into a quote CR3 encounter. Like, that's a lot of tankiness. They're quite meaty, so it can help a lot of that end. So I think I still would tie it to wisdom modifier. I couldn't think of a better way to really do it.
Yeah.
Other than your proficiency bonus, maybe that could have been a way. But it felt more appropriate to tie it to your wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom is usually associated with like willpower anyway, so
True.
I think it makes perfect sense for it to be wisdom based. But it's literally your ability to comprehend multiple creatures, control the will of multiple creatures at once.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure about how powerful it can get. The zombies are good. I think they peter out, because at like say, at 20th level, if your wisdom is capped at a 5, you have these 5 zombies, which are still just zombies.
CR
one quarter. Yeah. So you got a bunch of shambling CR 1/4 zombies. L20. Sure, they explode into 2d12 acid damage.
Sure.
Great. At that level, the best thing they could do is the teleporting ability.
Yeah.
Your ability, you reposition, avoid some damage, and that's great. But once you do all that, a lot of your subclass features kind of go with them.
It's true. I think their combat use peters out later in the game, and they become more support.
Yeah, and like you still have a good amount of benefits. Like this subclass is kind of a bundle of passives.
Yes.
You just have lots of like additional little things, but a lot of them are still reliant on or interact with your puppets. The additional damage also transfers to your puppets. You gain advantage on attacks with your ooze puppets nearby, all that stuff. And especially the combat oriented ones are kind of tricky, because I feel like if you're not in a campaign where you're constantly killing humanoids or beasts, and your DM doesn't allow you to do the bag of rats, because I know it says beast, but you know, it is what it is.
We might have needed to put something like medium size beast.
Maybe, yeah. But then it's weird, because I'm like, why can't I not control this smaller thing? I don't know. Maybe, arguably another subclass where, like, hopefully a player who uses it will not try to exploit something like Bag of Rats.
Yeah.
Which you can't really control that. It's just like, don't play with that person if that's not the style you want to play.
Sure.
But if you take that out, unless you're killing, like, people or wolves consistently, and you're able to keep a steady supply of corpses on hand, your subclass can run out pretty quick.
Yeah. Your passives are very strong, and they are good for multiple things besides combat. They are also very good, like, utility, like, exploration.
It's true. Yeah, the utility ones I think are strong enough
Yeah.
that puts it a little higher in terms of exploration. Maybe even the zombies honestly kind of give you a little bit of
intimidation, at least for social.
Oh, I was thinking social, and again, like if you send them into a city, you technically have like a bunch of spy cameras
That's
going
true,
around.
yeah,
It's
that
kind
is-
of like a way you could argue.
Yeah.
But it's another thing that's reliant again on puppets.
Yes. That is
And
puppets.
the only way, unless your party is okay with you like snapping the neck of some poor passerby to be like, we need someone right now, or you always have zombies on hand, or corpses on hand rather, to turn
Right.
into zombies. I could see this being kind of dependent on what kind of campaign you're in.
Yeah, that's fair.
Even more so than like, so even like the Torrent Barbarian, where it's like, oh well, if you're not near water, it's fine. You still have spectral water, and you can still use all your other subclass abilities. This one is so reliant on the puppets that again, they're just zombies.
Yeah.
They have, I think, like 20 health. They have undead fortitude. Good for them. But it's just 20 health. Like a group of knights can just mow them down in
Yeah.
short order, and then so you have to be really smart how you use it. So it kind of requires either a right player or a right campaign.
Yeah. This guy's gonna be great in something like Waterdeep, where it is very like
Yeah, yeah. If you're like in a city
in a city. Yeah.
and you're
Incredible.
and somehow you're like willing to dodge, like there's the murder on the loose and we don't know what, you're like, that's crazy. Anyway, like what green gooey explosions found at scene of crime? Can't explain what that's about. Having said that, I think it probably is a B.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think because of the reliance on the corpses for one of your abilities, it does limit it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't mean like I would want
It's
to
a
change
core
it.
ability. No.
I like it being like it's a little frail, but if you can make use of them well.
Yeah, it is potentially very strong in the right situation, just like you said. Like,
Yeah.
it can go beyond a B in a sort of campaign or situation built for it.
Yeah.
But overall, for any, like, just throwing into any campaign ever, I think B is a solid place for it. And that wraps up our run through the 12 base classes of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. We had a great time coming up with the fun themes for each class, and we hope to continue to do so in the future.
Same as last time, you can find all of the subclasses you saw today on our Patreon and Instagram, alongside years of other homebrew creations.
Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all next time.